Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.
Hello and welcome to the 250th Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama episode, and we are going to do what we did last time and really succeeded, which was a live version. So I've got my doubts whether this is going to be a very successful live version. We'd like to thank all the people that work with us as partners, Grendel Press, our co-writer Greg, who is sat there, Greg Sharp, is currently going through processes of having his books published by that very good horror publisher, Odin Apparel, and everyone who loves us, because it's nice to be loved anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and do a live cast, and then what we're going to do after that is answer a few questions that we've been asked, probably as a separate little podcast, but we don't know yet. We're just going to see how it goes. Have you got anything to add, Greg?
Well, I'm massively excited. It's lovely to be here. Last time, of course, we had a little bit of a safety net in that we did our favourite scenes from the previous something, didn't we? And so it was stuff that we'd done before, and we knew worked because we'd already had feedback on it.
This was a well thought out and really complicated script that I've been planning for months. So we'll see how it goes, and I'll be mostly doing Montgomery Fortescue. As you can see, I'm in Montgomery's recording studio at the moment, so hopefully I'll be able to, transfer his thoughts into my mind. We'll see how we go. Okay.
And I will, of course, have the other Fen.
Yeah,
get me over my shoulder, keeping an eye on me, making sure that I don't.
I'm glad one of the questions wasn't why did you name the werewolf soul after yourself, because I'd have been like, I don't know, just did. Yeah,
just did all right.
Why did you give the evil character your name? Anyway, moving on. Are you ready? Because it's mostly me and then it's mostly you, which is quite good because then I just get to hand over to you in a little bit.
I apologise in advance to everyone. I'm going to start looking over that way because that's where the script is.
Yeah, I'm going to be slightly off kilter as well because I've practiced it a couple of times and I messed it up both times. So this is going to be interesting. Okay. Montgomery Fortescue did not sigh. Why the heck am I speaking in the third person? Not a very British thing of a chap, what? Proper American thing, that, what? Oh, those American chaps did storm the bunkers with me in 43. Bloody good times. I did not sigh out loud. I had finally perfected the art of not sighing out loud sometime around 1983. I know a long time in my century or so of living, but it takes a while to develop a good sigh when you have a British officer's attitude to this world. Well, a British Commonwealth attitude to the world. I leaned back, I hasten to add, somewhat carefully against the bar. I had checked the surface. This tweed would not do with stains. The bar was polished wood, faintly sticky in places, and I observed Will from the corner of my eye. The youngish man, in comparison to myself, sat with the stillness of something coiled, not tense, simply contained. This did not make me particularly nervous. I had been dealing with such things for well over a century. You would not believe what you can get used to as being simply mundane. Across the room, the drunk, his pint held like a favourite child, had diplomatically relocated and was attempting to align himself with a bar stool, but was simply losing the argument. Will and I had watched him go, Will with a predator's gaze. There was calculation in that gaze, not anger exactly, assessment. I had seen that look many times in many briefing rooms before many operations. It worried me as much as anything could these days. We stood in uncompanionable silence, utterly distinct and different, but utterly the same in this moment. I suppose it was what passed for companionable silence between distinct predators of different vintages. The shared silence went on a little too long between us, and my thoughts began to drift. Wetherspoons. I had heard of these unhallowed establishments from the comedy skits I had listened to with my wife, Binky, on the good old BBC Radio 4. Good Lord, The place had all the spiritual gravitas of a motorway service station after opposing hooligan fan clubs had met and left it lousy and done. It had once been a concert hall of some kind, yet it had the acoustic properties of a tin bath. Beautiful architecture had been betrayed by cheap joinery and materials and a mind of a vandal for interior design. Sad, very sad. Yet I had conducted debriefings in worse establishments. At least here the beer was honest, if somewhat unimaginative. My eyes drifted over the clientele. Yes, indeed, very Phaeton adjacent. The hunched men radiated a low, persistent despair. The shrill laughter near the fruit machine had the territorial cadence of lesser Fae defending a midden heap. There was something almost comforting about its predictability. Monsters were easier when they believed themselves human. Will's mobile phone vibrated against the bar, a discreet, buzzing modern trill. Will glanced at the screen and then just dismissed it. He returned to his pint as if the world did not demand anything of him. I noticed this with mild irritation. Impulsivity was one thing. Selective deafness was quite another. My own pocket erupted into a brassy patriotism. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum. The Dam Busters March filled the air with a triumphant absurdity entirely out of place among sticky tables and discounted curry nights. Several heads turned. I closed my eyes for half a second. I had been told repeatedly that the ringtone was a bit much. I disagreed most devoutly. I extracted the device with dignified calm. A grey plastic brick, scuffed, reliable, indestructible, don't you know? A Nokia 3210, a weapon of sorts as much as a communication device. Will's lips twitched. Fenrir's presence flickered with amusement. I ignored them both and activated the museum piece with fondness for ancient technology that this technology deserves. Listen in on, it couldn't listen in on my chats on Google and MySpace. Fortescue, I asserted. A voice crackled through, dry, impatient, unmistakably professional.
Montgomery, thank heavens. Will's not answering.
My gaze shifted slowly toward Will, who was studiously examining the surface tension of his pint of Bass with a finger. I can imagine, I replied evenly.
I've rung him twice. Twice, man. Do you have him in visual range?
I certainly do.
Well, is the bloody, thing unconscious?
No, old chap.
Then why is he not answering his phone? This is an utterly important moment. I need to speak to him.
I allowed myself the smallest pause. He appears, I said, to be exercising somewhat selective autonomy. A sharp exhale on the other end.
I'd be awfully grateful if you could persuade the reprobate to take his call, Monty. Could you please pass him your phone?
I did not move immediately. Instead, I raised two fingers towards the barmaid. Pint of Timothy Taylor's landlord, my dear, I asked, and a whiskey chaser. Something peaty, no nonsense. The bar hag nodded, delighted by the specificity.
Montgomery?
The professor pressed.
Are you there?
I am, old chap. I was ordering a little civilization.
Well, this is hardly the time.
It really is, but we must have a little decorum. I would like to be focusing on a good pint of bitter. I hope for a good pint of bitter while you talk to him. Experience tells me this conversation could go either way, annoyingly short or annoyingly long, and in both cases I wish to be prepared to be somewhat annoyed. A defined Monty-type harumph at the other end of the line. The pint arrived first, amber, respectable, faintly floral. The whiskey followed in a small glass that promised a lot. It was peaty. I winked at the server. I very much approved. Now, I could do what was wished. Always be prepared, I said to the difficult silence being held by the perplexed professor. God, that was hard to say. I proffered the phone to Will while lifting the pint to the window to let the daylight shine through and show the amber honey glow of the liquid in all its clear beauty. It was clearly beautiful. It was A+ clarity. Again, unexpected. The professor, old chap, I said mildly to the werewolf. He seems to be under the impression that you are somewhat avoiding him. Will looked at the phone as though it were a mildly venomous insect. I'm drinking, he replied. Yes, I said, I can see that. I held the phone steady. Inwardly, I considered the situation. Will was volatile tonight, ever volatile, but more so tonight. His edges, although not displayed, were sharper and more defined. I was using my luck well here, skirting the line of the werewolf's social instability. I knew how to do so. The professor did too, which was precisely why he was calling right now. I now took a measured sip of the Taylor's while still holding the phone out. I could wait for him to take it as long as it took to drink this. The pint gave me a good reason to wait. Timothy Taylor's was dependable, multi-backbone, full of bitterness. It did not pretend to be anything it wasn't, unlike, well, most of the room, which I was desperately trying not to become aware of. It was taking too long, even though, for the Taylors. Take it, for goodness sake, man, I said, sort of quietly to Will. Not a command. Not quite, but close. Across the bar, a drunk laughed too loudly at something no one had said. My grip on the whiskey glass tightened ever so slightly. I hate coincidences. I hate noticing coincidences. I had learned over a long and decorated life that when something like Will ignored the professor, it was rarely good news for the world. Thank you.
End of Act 1. Very, very good indeed. All right. We're ready for Act 2?
Yeah, sort of.
I'm going to try and do this entire act in one breath. Do you think we'll get there?
One breath, okay. Let's do it.
The Professor. I hadn't intended to spend this evening arguing with a werewolf in a public house via a wing commander's antiquated telephone. Academia had once promised me better endings to my days. I sit in this university office, a high-ceilinged Victorian room lined with sagging bookshelves and filled with the faint smell of old paper and 1980s radiator heat. Outside, students cross the quad in loud, careless clusters. Inside, I tap my fingers on my desk with increasing irritation. Will had declined my call. Twice. I stared at my mobile, as though it had personally betrayed me. The audacity of the man. One should not ignore a call from a professor of comparative demonology and everything else when one lives in and on the overlapping margins of hell. I dialed Monty instead. Thank heaven, the wing commander answered my call. Now I waited. And bloody waited. Irritated, as I listened to the muffled ambience of pub, glassware, low conversation and something brassy in the background. My jaw tensed and tightened. Put him on, I had said. There was a pause, a shuffling sound, and then...
Professor?
Will's voice. Casual. Distracted. Fucking amused. I exhaled sharply through my nose. Why? I began, making sure each word was carefully articulated and chosen when dealing with this literal bastard. Why did you not answer your telephone?
I'm having a drink.
That is not an answer.
Well, it kind of is technically.
I could hear a sip being taken at the other end.
And to be honest, it's the one I'm giving in this case.
I closed my eyes briefly. Utter exasperation. I wiped my hand over my face, irritated. Must keep it together. Must maintain eloquence and patience. Will?
Yeah?
You are not a freelance plumber. Silence was the answer. When I call, it is generally because something is attempting to tear open the metaphysical fabric of reality. A faint clink of glass.
Clink? Well, that's not happening at the moment, is it?
And how would you know? You didn't answer your phone, did you?
Because at the moment, I'm drinking.
A pause? Unsurprisingly. Fair, I replied, pinching the bridge of my nose. Where? Came out with more than a hint of the anger I was allowing to build. Stay calm, Simon. Stay calm, ran through my thoughts. Where are you, my dear chap?
Wetherspoons.
I stared at the far wall of this office as if it might offer me strength. Yes, of course you are. There was a rustle on the line.
Oh, and by the way, you bought me 2 cars.
Will added. Well, technically I did not. It was the British taxpayer that bought you 2 cars with the country's hard-earned wages that you've wasted on wasteful things, while veterans sleep on the streets, children starve, and the bloody NHS can't afford to car bloody things because wasteful bastards like yourself know they can get away with wasting that fucking money on the utter shit you don't need. It's something I didn't say out loud. What I actually said was, oh, okay, we'll talk about that another time, shall we? We would. I planned to. I will say, though, to create a thought in your head, the 2 seem a little excessive, perhaps, on this occasion. Perhaps we'll just leave it there, shall we? Silence.
You know what? You're right.
The werewolf said.
I like excessive, though. 2 E-types, both 64s. Beautiful.
I physically flinched at the expenditure. I need to see you, Will, quite urgently. Could we leave the excessive E-types just now? I need to see you, quite urgently.
Yeah, I know.
What? I was confused, and then, as if he remembered a simple dental appointment, he said,
I'm meeting Lucifer at your place later.
I froze. My place?
Yeah.
Okay, the seeing me bit is good, but meeting Lucifer needs further explanation. For what conceivable reason would Lucifer be attending my home this evening? I said, although she did seem to appear there quite regularly, if I'm honest.
Oh, she's given me a thingy, you know, like some sort of secret mission type thing for her.
Will replied lightly. Another sip sounded out. I was utterly bemused at this. Too long a pause followed. Too many sips. Will, please continue.
With what?
The secret mission, I tried.
Oh, yeah. Something about going to hell and giving something, I don't know, a right good kicking. What was it called?
I heard another sip.
Well, fighting a laddie or lady, perhaps Astaroth, the mighty ass trash or something like that. Didn't quite catch it, if I'm to be honest, but I love a good dust-up, as you know, and Fenn's bang up for it. It sounds right fun.
There was silence. The kind of silence in which entire theological frameworks wobble. You have to be a little more precise with your hellspawn, Will. It's rather important. I've never heard of a lady, Asta Rothman, I replied slowly.
Aye, that was it. Or Lady Asta Toastman. It was something floral, I'm sure.
Fuck's sake, I said out loud, unmeaning to as I palmed my forehead.
No, that's not the fellow. It definitely started with an ass. By the way, have you seen the fucking phone Monty is using? Is this what you cheap bastards call a phone?
He continued, off topic. Will?
I mean, if you guys can afford to buy me 2 fucking cars, then Monty should at least get some sort of iPhone.
Will?
I mean, he's like a proper part of our intelligence service, and he can't even use WhatsApp, can he, with that thing?
Will!
Hmm?
Do you, by any chance, think she may have said the name Astaroth? A pause followed, and then...
Who's he?
The one you are... I had to use his dictum, which hurt my feelings rather. The one whose arse you have to kick.
Oh, aye, that was it, Astaroth. I'm going to hell to find this Astaroth, was it, and see if it's possible to kill him or her or it, you know, whatever the situation kind of, you know, turns out to be.
My composure fractured somewhat. Astaroth, I said, faintly. The adrenaline shot across me and made me rise from my chair and begin pacing around the room. Will, do you have the faintest understanding of what Astaroth is?
I think so. He's probably a demon, isn't he? Yeah, he's a demon, I think.
I let out a short, incredulous laugh. A demon, I repeated. Yes, a demon. He didn't understand that there were demons and then there were demons. Yes, I mean, you're utterly right. A demon. But a demon in the same sense that a nuclear detonation is a little bit warm. Nothing. I began speaking faster now, the scholar in me overtaking sanity. Astaroth is not some back-alley imp you can throttle behind a sulfur vent. No response. So I continued. In the Ars Goetia, which I might add I've read in the original Latin, Astaroth is a great duke of hell. Some traditions elevate him to the rank of prince. He commands 40 legions of demons. Will made a non-committal sound.
Oh?
I pressed on, my voice sharpening just a little. He is, or she is, depending on the theological lens, associated with forbidden knowledge, with secrets of creation, with the seduction of kings, and the corruption of the highest theologians and saints. Medieval grimoires describe Astaroth as whispering truths so profound they drive men to despair.
Packet of cheese and chives, love.
Will!
Eh? Oh, you finished. Yeah, sounds a right chatty fellow, demony type. What's it?
Will, listen to me. I slammed a hand on the desktop. quite hard, actually. Astaroth is linked to the ancient Near Eastern goddess Astarte, a being whose worship predates Christianity by millennia. There are theological arguments that what we call Astaroth is a demonized remnant of an older deity. Do you understand what that implies?
Yeah, of course I do.
Will snapped back at me. Do you really? Pause.
Well, no.
It took every ounce of my will not to completely lose my temper. It implies, I snapped, that you are proposing to assault something that has survived theological collapse, empire, exorcism, and the Enlightenment.
Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute.
There was a rustling, a pop, and a crunch or two.
Yeah. Sorry?
Came back with what sounded like a mouthful of crisps.
Right. They're pretty tough then, yeah?
Crunch, crunch. I sighed. Astaroth is described as riding a dragon, I continued relentlessly, breathing poisonous vapours. It is said that if you approach without proper protection, the stench alone can destroy your soul. Scholars debate whether that's metaphorical. I am not inclined to test it.
I think we'll be all right. Fenn's got a good nose.
This is not about Fenn's fucking nose! I yelled. I actually fucking yelled. I stopped pacing and lowered my voice, but the intensity remained. Will, Astaroth is not really powerful. Astaroth is strategic, subtle, ancient. This is an entity that traffics in influence, in corruption, in the dismantling of will. Silence, filled by crisp eating. One cannot simply have a dust-up with something like that.
Oh, one can't. Why can't one old chap one?
He was imitating me now and adding his own unique hint of mockery. I retook my seat, bitterly, if such a thing can be done. Well, simply because you will lose. The certainty in my voice hung heavy in the air. You, Will, cannot win. Will, I said, only a little quieter now. It is impossible. Don't get me wrong. You are formidable. Yes. Dangerous? Certainly. But Astaroth operates on a scale that simply dwarfs you. A strange sentence for me to utter here. But you know what? You're just a werewolf. On the other end of the line came a sort of chuckle. Will?
You worry too much, Professor.
I am a scholar of the ludicrous. Worry is my professional baseline.
Well,
Will replied easily.
I suppose we'll see, won't we? Worst case, I don't win. As the meerkats on the advert say, simples.
I had no idea what he was talking about. Meerkats?
Yeah, Sergei's funny.
I was thrown for a second, but managed to get all the plates of this conversation back up in the air and spinning just in time. Never mind. Worst case, you lose everything, I told the utterly mad bastard faintly.
Anyway, that's why she's meeting me later, to give me a lift there or something. You know, lift. elevator, not sure what hell's using these days. You know what she's like.
I sank back into my chair. Lucifer, providing transport. Astaroth, the target of an impossible assassination attempt. That's all it could be. It could only be an attempt. What the devil was the devil up to? I smiled. She was only using my weapon. A werewolf who had no idea that he was just a weapon. A weapon who did not care about the outcome. He would just revel in the fight. And whatever happened to him and his wolf soul, they would enjoy the fight. Will?
Aye?
He was mildly tipsy and uncaring in a public house.
She works in mysterious ways, eh? A bit like the god bloke, really.
Yes, I said weakly. Mysterious. There was a pause.
Professor?
Yes, Will.
You sound stressed.
I was. And I was simply staring at the ceiling. I'm simply contemplating, I said slowly, whether to reinforce the wards on my house or simply bugger off and move out. Will laughed.
There we go. Whatever happens, do you know what? It'll be a laugh.
He laughed again. A warm, careless sound.
See you in a bit, Professor.
The line went dead. I remained seated for several long seconds, phone still in my hand. On my desk lay 3 open grimoires, half-written paper on infernal hierarchies, and a cold cup of tea. Astaroth, I muttered to the empty office. I'd spent decades studying hell, and now one of its apex powers was about to be challenged by a werewolf who couldn't give a fuck about Astaroth winning or losing, or even the demon's name. I closed my eyes as my thoughts went to the ring of binding. I then did something very rare for a man like myself. God help, I said quietly. I wasn't entirely sure which side I wanted him to help, but never, in all my not inconsiderable time on this miserable planet, had help been needed more.
Brilliant. We did it. We did it. I only made 2 mistakes.
Yeah, I only left a couple of lines. But the viewers and listeners will be pleased to hear there was a little bit of improvisation on both sides there.
Yeah, but I think that goes with the script anyway, doesn't it? Because we both know our characters so well and how they would interpret and add to stuff. So one of the things that I love writing for Dee, Yvonne, yourself as actors is I know what I write will then be interpreted in the correct way because you know your characters so well. It's just wonderful when that happens. And yeah, that was brilliant. I really enjoyed that. It's really nice to bounce it off you and get it back because then you've got that reflection, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's different. It's so different from kind of doing it in a vacuum, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
There's a certain intensity to sort of locking yourself away in a broom cupboard and you and a script and a microphone, right? There's a certain intensity to that.
Yeah.
But there's no dynamic to it like there is with doing it.
I think we noticed it last time was how much it added to the sharpness of it and the way with adding the interaction because you actually get a feeling for the character that is being offered and it reflects back on both. That was really, really cool. We need to do this more often.
We shouldn't do it every 50 episodes, right?
Yeah. Every 100 episodes. There's another 100 weeks, isn't there? We've got to get
We've got to do a summer special, maybe.
No, that's brilliant. I really enjoyed that. That's a really good thing. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. We've not got that far yet, guys. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. So that's the episode. Are we going to answer these questions then?
Yeah, I need to just get them up on the screen in front of me, which you emailed them through to me earlier.
Yeah. These are questions that have been offered by people over the last 249 episodes. Okay, we're back. As I said, are you still there? You're there. That's okay. You stopped moving for a moment there. It frightens me when people stop moving. Good. We've got some questions, and I've made interpretations of them as well. So, yeah. Do you want to go one for one, or do you want to I mean, I suppose the first one's really aimed at me, isn't it? Did you always know Will would stay unapologetically evil? Was there ever a version of the story where he redeems himself, or was the point always to resist the sad, misunderstood monster trope? He kind of did have a moment where he became a little bit sort of misunderstood monster, didn't he? When he thought the death of his children happened. When was that? That was like
149.
Yeah, that was one of my favourite.
A werewolf feels grief.
Yeah. That was one of my favourite.
Gee, that's 100 episodes ago, Fen.
Eh?
That's 100 episodes
That's
ago.
100 weeks ago. That's the terrifying bit. That's 2 years ago. Yeah, we've been doing this a long time. I always wanted him to stay materialistic and evil. I think there are times when it breaks down, though. But yeah, we needed the evil character to stay evil, and I think he's become more of a tool these days to be used by people more than evil. Even in his early days, he was just a weapon. Even in the first 30 episodes of the podcast, he was just a weapon that could be turned to be used, but then sort of turned round on those that used the weapons. So I suppose that's it. What do you interpret it as?
Yeah, well, I think it's really quite interesting, because the human being side of Will is this narcissistic, self-obsessed, materialistic human being who's also psychotic, right? So he's got a whole load of stuff going on when you consider him just as a human being. And then, this is before we get to the combination of him and Fen, then this individual is picked up and used by people like Lucy. Lucy used him as a weapon of revenge, right, against Astaroth. She tricked him in episode 149 into thinking things were true that weren't, and was very Lucifer-y. So she manipulated him, so she exerted her power over him. And Simon exerts the power of influence over him frequently. But there's always, even with Lucy, there's always this fine line, because the power of Fen plus Will combined is almost limitless, and it's very unpredictable. And I know he's been destroyed, and they've been torn apart a couple of times, or almost torn apart a second time, and and Will actually got killed at one time by the army. But nonetheless, there's almost no limits to the power and the unpredictability of him. And there was even a moment when Lucy had a flicker of doubt behind her eyes once. She was like, "Ooh, I didn't expect him to do that," and then she sort of disappeared, and he couldn't get to her. So there's always something about him, even though we have occasionally lifted a little bit of the lid on his humanity, just a little. There's always this crazy otherworldly power about the character that ultimately doesn't have the same moral
code
equipment as the rest of us.
I think
it's just not equipped to do things in the same terms that we do.
I think even Fenrir's wolf soul kind of has some level of control over how crazy Will can actually get. I think with Will, excuse the French, but he has this don't give a fuckability. He doesn't really care about very much at all. And that's really useful. Although, if we look at the first 30 episodes, that backfired on the British Army when they did that. And I think the Professor and Lucifer and the characters around him are always like, this is a great thing to have, but you've got to always be aware that it could go massively wrong. Yeah. I don't think he's evil. I just don't think he really cares about very much at all. So, yeah, it's a good question, though. Thanks.
Yeah. I'll just cap that maybe by saying, in order for him to be evil, I think he would have to have the same moral compass as the rest of us.
Yeah, he would actually have to choose to do bad things, wouldn't he? While he doesn't care. Yeah. That's
yeah. He's genuinely not tuned into morality in the same way we are.
No,
he doesn't view what he's doing as evil. He doesn't ascribe to that.
Just what
scale.
He does. Yeah, just what he does. Yeah. Okay, I hope that.
We can call him evil. We can consider him evil, and I think if we don't, there's probably something wrong with us, right? By our own judgment, he does wicked things, right? So that makes sense. But to him, that doesn't make sense.
No, he's just doing what he does, And I think he thinks that he's a predator, he's a werewolf. This is what is expected of him. So, you can't really... I don't think he classes himself even as human in a way. He's like, well, I'm not human, so I can do what I want, really. I'm a predator, I can kill people. He doesn't really give a shit, does he? So.
There was a lovely interaction between him and Lucy week before last, I think it was, when they were doing that little bit where she was pretending to be prosecuting him in court when they were in the cell. And he was like, yes, well, in order for there to be malice aforethought or whatever it was, it has to be a person who has that, and I'm not really a person, am I? Or I'm not a person. And she goes, yes, no personality whatsoever. Case dismissed.
That was an addition by D as well, which was brilliant. I have to admit, when I listened to that, I was like, God, she's got the character so well. It's like, God, I wish I'd written that.
Yeah.
Okay, who came first, Will or Fen? Did the central dynamic start with the werewolf concept, the wolf-soul duality, or the eccentric professor as a foil? They came together, really. It was just two halves of something. I saw initially Fenrir as the evil half of the characters, but as it goes along, it seems more that he is the controlling aspect of what Fen is capable of. The professor didn't come in till later on, and I don't really know how the professor came about. I had a mind for a character as the professor, and then I discussed it with you, and we built this expert, Simon de Montfort, who, through a huge number of coincidences, has worked out to be a wonderful character.
Well, yes, and I think in the first instance, I don't know what plans you had for that character. I mean, you said to me almost word for word, I can remember it. I've got an idea about having a character who's some sort of expert in the occult and works with the police. And you sort of approached me with that idea for us to kick it around together a little bit. And I don't think you really had a much bigger plan than for him to occasionally pop up and be involved in some level. And through good luck and perhaps a bit of judgment on my part, he grew arms and legs and became, a regular feature. It felt like he chose that path for himself in a way.
Yeah,
the way
it was
he emerged.
It was very posh word, serendipitous.
Yeah, it's a word Simon would use. Serendipitous.
Yes, what I love about Simon is he still surprises me to this day in the fact that I didn't realise that Leicester University was called Simon de Montfort University, and we've got his character running behind the scenes this set of sort of occult and supernatural kind of masters and degrees and PhDs going on at Leicester University, which is named after the man himself who was from Leicester. Brilliant. Okay, question 3. This is how planned is the long arc? Do you outline major mythological beats, angels, fae, cosmic politics years in advance, or does the chaos evolve episode by episode? What do you think, Greg?
And that, in a nutshell, is how we do it.
Yes, that's basically what we do.
I don't know. What do you think?
It gets to a Wednesday morning, and normally what I do is I sit in front of the computer, and then I look at the screen for a while, and then I message you, going, "What should we do this week?" And then you come across with a few ideas, and we sit there and we like put it back and forth, and then we write that week's episode, we make it, and then we repeat and rinse every week. So there is no long arc at all. We just do what we feel like as it sort of evolves. From my point of view, Greg might have a different sort of view on it.
Yeah, I think that's almost all of it. For me, there's a couple of little bits. Sometimes we come up with more ideas in a conversation than we've got room for in an episode.
Yeah.
Right. And that might be stuff that we want to see play out over the next 2 or 3 episodes. But it's ultimately bullet points. It's not really anything much more than that at that stage. Wouldn't it be great if so-and-so did this and then so-and-so turned around and said, "Oh, you bastard," and then I want to find a way to get this line in there because this would be hilarious or this would be impactful or it would describe something. And sometimes there just isn't space to squeeze everything into one episode, so we'll cascade it across a few weeks. Apart from that, I mean, the longest term thinking I've ever done on it was as we approached the end of the series, the very long series with Samarat. I remember sitting down and I knocked out a 2-slide PowerPoint with a load of ideas in it of how I thought we could bring. There were about 8 separate threads in flight at that point in time, and I sat down and figured out how to bring them all together, much in the same way I do when I'm writing a novel. Yeah. Actually, I don't necessarily always do it with PowerPoint. I just did that so I could share something with Fen. But I got all the ideas out of my head and in front of me, and figured out how to pull them all back together, and then. I think we tied everything up in the last episode and a half. We did it all. Yeah,
I mean it. What I always feel like is we have these. It grows and builds itself. It becomes quite complicated and convoluted, and then we use the characters to bring that together. So we know how Simon would react in this situation. We know how Lucifer would react in this situation. We know how Will would react. We know how all these characters would sort this out, and I've learned that from the characters that you guys have developed, and then it sort of brings everything to a head at the end of a series. I mean, this series I think has been nearly a year long, series 12. Yeah, that we're on at the moment. We finished our medieval one last sort of March time, I think.
Is it really that long ago?
I think so, because I think we're 50 episodes in. But yeah, it's character driven, because the characters really define what's going on. We just give them ideas and really just run with how they would react to it. And and as I say, normally my first thing to do is message Greg and say what we're going to do this week, and then you come up with several ideas and we build it from there.
Yeah, and you know, I've said this in interviews before, and I'll say it again. Fen, you're an absolute machine when it comes to writing this stuff. You know, we bounce ideas off each other and we talk stuff through. You know, we're exchanging WhatsApp messages all the time, kicking stuff around. And I occasionally do a little bit of writing, but Fen does so much of the heavy lifting every single week. It's just relentless.
I don't use that myself, but thank you very much. But I think the thing for me is I realise that you have a life while I don't.
I would never phrase it in those terms.
Yes, thank you very much.
By the way, I should say to you, you realise it was St David's Day yesterday.
Oh, right, excellent.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, of course, it come rag. Okay, so, question 4. Is there a hidden cosmology rulebook? You've built a wild supernatural system. Is there a master document explaining how angels, demons, fae, and magic actually function? Or are you improvising with vibes and consistency checks?
Oh, consistency checks. We should do that.
Good idea. I think what we do is basically we have our magic system is based on how much people believe in something. So if you genuinely I like the way that I do it is faith based, and it's I suppose that if you genuinely believe in something that has power, and we go with that, and we tend to run things back and forth between each other about what we should do with angels, demons, and the fae, and then from there, and I also like to do things like with fairy, foxglove, have them being sort of counter to what everyone thinks they are. So, like, I like having angels that are arseholes and narcissists, and I like also having demons that are really nice people, and you really like them, but they're evil bastards. So I think it's just playing around with faith. Yeah.
I have to say, one of my favourite characters, an occasional recurring character, is Gabriel, Archangel Gabriel. I just love him so much. He cracks me up. And anyone who's ever seen the Harry Potter films, the character of Gilderoy Lockhart always comes to
That's
mind.
him, isn't it?
It sort of is, isn't it?
Shit, stolen it. Do you think I do?
Gabriel, he just loves it, doesn't he?
Yeah. But what I love is he just seems to get away with it all the time as well, doesn't he? He's completely hopeless, and but there's a strange love interest between him and Lucifer that we've not explored yet. Which, if we did have a long story arc, we must understand why that's there at some point.
Yes, it was referred to in the Fate in Arms once upon a time.
Yeah.
There's been the occasional sort of exchanged glance here and there.
Yeah.
The mention of stuff.
Question 5. What's the emotional core beneath the carnage? Under the gore and absurdity, is there a central theme you're consciously exploring? Power, identity, free will, or is it more instinctive than thematic? I don't know.
Eyebrow question, isn't it?
I have no idea. Is there an emotional core? I don't know. I think it's just seeing what's acceptable and unacceptable and playing with it more than anything. It's not like I just try and stay away from tropes. I mean, I've been accused of being an edgelord, which I didn't know what one was, which is apparently someone that's always writing along the themes of how horrible the world is and how I can explain to you how horrible the world is. But I also think in moments we see elements of beauty and friendships and understanding. I like to see Lucifer as a character who's not evil, but she just gives people choices, and it's up to them whether they make their choices. So it's using that thing that we supposedly got from God, which is free will. She kind of points them in directions to choose from, and that came from from the actress who plays Lucifer, in the fact that she's not actually an evil person. She's an angel that's been given a job, and her job is to.
Yeah.
So I think the emotional core is that we're all given choices, and it's how we take those choices and how the characters view those choices.
Yeah, I think Lucy is a very nuanced character, and she, in our imagining, isn't all about doing evil things to good people. She's about punishing the evildoer after they've lived a life on planet Earth in this existence that we occupy. She's about, however, she is also about creating the conditions in which people are given those choices. And what do I do? Which way do I go? Do I do something good, in which case I don't have to worry about Lucy, or do I do something truly wicked that's going to get me? I'm not going to get through the ticker tape office at the front door at Heaven's Gate that we've visited a few times, and I'm going to end up going downstairs, and we know that's going to be a bad ending. right? We know that's not going to work out well. So we do explore, a classical moral code in that dynamic, whilst sort of peeling away the troped imagining of the devil as being something innately wicked. We sort of imagine her as being neither good nor evil.
Yeah. She's. I always think she's the prison. I suppose she's the head of the prison, isn't she? She's the main man. In the fact that she's got a job to do, and I really like that in the character and the lack of evil intention. She's not there, and I also like bringing in other characters like Luck and things like that come in and just screw things up. So yeah, it's a bit weird.
Well, and also fairy foxglove.
Yeah.
We in fairy stories, in inverted commas, we often see fairies as these cute little Disney characters
that get
pixie dust around everywhere and all that kind of stuff. And she's absolutely a hardcore nutcase.
Yeah.
And a drug baron.
Yeah, but what I love about Fairy Foxglove is you can kind of understand why she's like that, because all her people have been abused for years and years. They've, so she's just turned that around. She's now turned fairy dust, and I quite like the idea that the downtrodden comes forth, even though she's completely psychotic and what she's doing is completely mental. But there's a kind of understanding why she's kind of done that, as her people have been abused. So yeah, it's a weird mix of things. Yeah. So I don't really know what the core of our thing is. I think it's just dealing with emotional intelligence and how things can look evil to one person but different to another, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think it's about not accepting the status quo just because it's always been described that way. Because the chances are it hasn't even always been that way. It's just been described that way.
Yeah.
And why take somebody else's description for it? Free will is a big theme that we revisit an awful lot, and we talk about it quite a bit. And I think, actions and consequences is another thing that we talk about. You go and poke the bear and you're going to get your arm ripped off, and that stuff happens in our world.
Yeah.
It's a werewolf. But it is about people putting themselves in harm's way, and then, don't be surprised if you get harmed.
Yeah.
Right?
I do like that. Okay, question 6. Have any characters surprised you? I'll let you go with that one first. Has a side character ever taken over more than expected, or has a storyline grown way bigger than you originally intended?
Well, there's two that immediately spring to mind, and that's Lucy and Foxglove.
Yeah.
Because neither of them were really intended to be central characters when they first came along. And yet, we wrote a story arc around Foxglove, and Lucy's sort of woven in two different periods of history for us.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the underlying theme for Lucifer is that she's always there, isn't she? And she's always kind of got an eye. Like even in some of what I've done with editing, I've put her music in the background because she has a theme. Lucy's theme, it's called, that we made. We decided on Lucy's theme, and then whenever there's a little note that she might be playing something in the background, we have Lucy's theme. So I hope that's something that people notice. Yeah, she's always there.
Oh, another character that surprised me is Trudeau the cat, the demon cat.
Such a
Who's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's such a brilliant little character. I first saw it as an evil little demon, but the little malicious cat, and what I love is it plays so well off Lucifer's character. You know what I mean? And Dee has such a great accent and such a great way of portraying that character that it's so difficult to stop writing it.
I can tell you, she has so much fun. Sometimes the script will come through and I'll come out here to my office and I'll print it off and I'll come back in and I'll say, quite a bit for you this week. And I'll be like, yeah, there's quite a bit with Lucy and there's quite a bit with Trudeau in there as well. And she'd be like, oh, Trudeau's quite hard. And I'm like, you invented it.
I'm always so thankful for the work that you guys do. I'm always like, I don't know how much I can push making this about this character. Like with the professor, I love the professor's perspective on things because he's got a reasonable mind. Well, when you write through the point of view of Will, he's a complete lunatic. So like it's quite difficult to draw like with what we just did in the acting that we just did. He kind of, the professor has an actual human sort of overview of it, while Will's overview of it is kind of like it's just something completely alien to me. So I love writing the other characters and them seeing what's going on. Yeah. Anyway, yes. Okay, question 7. Where do you draw the line on violence? The show gleefully pushes boundaries. Is there a content threshold you've decided not to cross, or is anything fair game if it serves tone and story? We will not ever do sexual abuse. That's just one thing that I've consistently set on from a very early point of view. Everything that is done that way is consensual. But apart from that, the violence is, and the horror especially leading up to the more humanizing of the werewolf, was very extreme. But yeah, I didn't really draw any lines at first. I draw lines with certain characters. Like Lucifer is not about violence and horror. The professor is not particularly, he will do it, but that's why the werewolf is in there, because he's willing to do that and actually quite enjoys it. So when it comes to the werewolf, there are no limits because he's just capable of anything, while with the other characters, I think they all have their own distinct boundary of where I can go to with the gore.
Yeah. I mean, the professor's an interesting one, isn't he? Because he definitely has a dark side. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I think he didn't he once impale a bloodlord on a spike like a lance.
Yeah.
I seem to recall. But
he's trying to be a better person, though.
he's only doing it to. Well, actually, this is the thing about Simon, right? His entire motivation is he wants to get into heaven and hang out with Lord Percy.
Yeah.
Right? All his mates got into heaven and he got turned away at the door.
He
and
he's back like Gervais and Percy, really, doesn't he?
He wants to go and hang out with the lads again, but he needs access to the garden in order to be able to do it. So everything he does, he's kind of got one eye on, what I'm doing now is ostensibly an act of wicked violence, but as long as I can put it in the context of the bigger picture of the mission I've been set, well, God moves in mysterious ways, and therefore so do I, because he created me. So it's really out of my hands, isn't it? You know, and he sort of justifies stuff in those kind of crazy ways. But another of the characters who has, I think, the potential for extreme violence is William Marshall. Now,
of course, from that era, though, doesn't he?
It's in a different way. Now, of course, William and Will are both partnered with Fenn, so perhaps there's an aspect of that limitless violence included because of that collaboration or that connection. But William's the most violent person on the battlefield.
Yeah,
William's the most extreme knight. You know, he will run face first through a buzzsaw, and a buzzsaw will bend.
Yeah.
He will do whatever it takes to win in the name of God.
Even actually giving himself over to be killed. He's like, well, if you've decided that I've done this thing that's really wrong, then I give you permission to do it. I mean, he's like, there's no backing down with William, is there? He is the I will do whatever it takes.
Everything's absolute.
Yes.
Everything.
I really like that character, and we're going to have to go back there after we finish this little series. Yeah, series 12.
Well, I miss Gervais.
I sometimes worry that he's a bit of a trope, being the classical drunken. But what I like about him is he's drunk for a reason. It's escapism from the reality of what he's going through and experiencing. He's just, to him, it's just a crutch for him to lean on, isn't it? And he's a great character, and Percy's a great character. I love writing Percy's songs, and I think he's such a lovely guy in his own way, even though he's a complete coward, but he's so much loved as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, question 8. Is there an ending in mind? At 249 episodes, fans have to wonder, do you know how it ultimately ends? Or is this a saga that keeps mutating as long as you're having fun? I don't have an end in mind. We tend to get to the end of a series and then start another series with a great premise. We normally sit down and go, what's the next premise? And then it kind of builds itself after that. I don't see an ending. I mean, it's been 5 years now, so I don't know. Is it something we should consider? I have no idea. It doesn't feel like there should be an ending, really.
No, well, and certainly, to address the sort of, how about as long as it keeps mutating and you keep having fun? Well, I think the truth is it does keep mutating to this point. It does still feel quite original. A lot of the ideas, it still feels pretty fresh, and it is still a lot of fun, and we are still exploring new and different ways to bring it to the audience.
Yeah.
And additionally, we do still have another period of history up our sleeves that we haven't gone to.
Oh, we have, yeah. I mean, we've been to the First World War. We've been, been all over, haven't we? But yeah, we have another period in time to go to, because we've got another person who lived with the werewolf, with the wolf soul at one point, and they lived with that wolf soul for an awful long time. So that'll be interesting to play with at some point.
Yeah, a major player.
Yeah.
Yet to be discovered.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah, I'm quite looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Okay, number 9. How much of the humour is scripted vs discovered? The absurd tangents and philosophical riffs feel spontaneous. Is that tight writing, loose performance, or somewhere in between? I don't really know. I think the humour developed over the time that me and Greg got together, because up to that point it was very horror, very harsh. I did find moments of humour in there with Will not really seeing reality as reality is, and what he found funny. But after that, we kind of got into the world of absurdism, in that some of the things that are carried out and done are absolutely absurd and horrible. And I mean, one of my favourite things to write was the wrestling between demons, and it was just such a wonderful, ridiculous thing to do. We had the WWE with like angels and demons and Noel Edmonds, and it was absolutely awesome.
Really nuts. The game show.
That was absolutely phenomenal. I really enjoyed that. So the humour is a mixture of both, really. It's scripted, and then we kind of find it as we go along.
Yeah, I mean, when we first started sort of talking about the show, and you were 100 episodes in or thereabouts at that time, or approaching 100 episodes in, the story goes that I was talking to Fed and pinging him on social media and saying, I was laughing out loud while I was out walking with my dog, and people might have been wondering what I was laughing at, and if they could only hear, they'd probably have me locked up. But it was relatively early episodes, and I was finding that my funny bone was being tickled by the little bits of absurd humour in amongst this horror show that was going on all around it, and then there'd be some silly thought would occur to Will partway through, and it would just sort of occur to him, and he'd be like, oh yeah, and then there'd be a shrug and go, I don't know, and then he'd carry on doing whatever he was doing. It was horrible, and I found that irresistibly fun. to connect with. And I think the first collaboration we did, which was episode 105, when we brought Ernest in for looting the museum.
Yeah.
That was quite a fun episode to do, and I think we both got a bit of a kick out of, and let's not forget that that episode ended with Will murdering a child in a museum.
Yeah. Not funny.
Hilarious. But we had fun building up to that, and then wallop to the end. The punchline was this act of horror right at the end of it. And it wasn't long after that we sort of decided to write Simon into the next storyline.
Yeah.
And he's not ostensibly a comedy. He wasn't ostensibly a comedy character. He was a straight character who said things that were ludicrous.
Yeah. I think the thing that I love about what we have in our writing is that although we're talking about incredible sort of made-up supernatural worlds and the fae and fairies and magic and all that kind of stuff, the humour comes from mundanity. So, it's like this is normal to these people. I think the first time I ever got this sense of humour was when I read a Terry Pratchett book, and they were talking about a torturer. And on his desk, he had a mug that his child had made for him, which was, my dad is the best torturer. And the guy, in between doing these absolutely horrendous acts of atrocious torture, would then go in and have a chat with his mate about his kid while drinking coffee out of the mug that his kid made. And I was like, there must be, even in the most horrible situations and the most evil and horrible bits, a level of it's kind of normal. It's a mundane thing that some of these people do, and it's like, I think that's where most of the humour comes from. This is not people like saying, oh God, this is terrible and all that kind of stuff. It's they're doing these things are happening, but also normal life is there. Do you know what I mean? It's like
there's a great example of that in Life of Brian, actually, where Brian is being processed by the Romans, shall we say, and I think as Michael Palin comes up to him with a tablet like the equivalent of a clipboard, and he looks up and he goes, crucifixion. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, oh, over there, please, one cross each.
There has to be that element of, and what makes it humorous is that it is that norm. It's normal. That was somebody's job. That was their daily task, was to hand out the crosses, and to tie them up there and nail them on. And then at night, he had to go home to his wife and kids, and what did you do today, darling?
Yeah, well, we crucified a bunch of things.
Do you know those bloody Christians? I had to do 25 today.
And when I say bloody, you should have seen them.
Yeah, ran out of nails halfway through. We had to go and recycle bloody nails. And it's kind of like there is
off down to being killed.
Yeah, there is that element of like with the horror in the werewolf that I constructed was that's his life, and it's just to think that that's normal to him is the bit that is the frightening bit, and the ability for him to go from intrinsically normal to being level 10 violence and horror, to me was incredible as well, because there just doesn't seem in normal life that ability to go poof. And in a way, that's funny. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of straight funny,
And maybe the perfect example of that is last week's episode in the prison cell when Nietzsche comes in and Will's in there trying to buy an E-Type on his phone, right? Or he was browsing for cars at the time, and he's like, oh, yeah, look at that, racing cream. Oh, I don't make them like that anymore. Bang, bang, bang.
He's just doing his job. Yeah, and what I like about that is it took me a while to put it into the script, but he he gets a thrill out of the fact that when he smashes his head onto the steel desk, it goes bonk. It's a proper bonk. He's like, oh, I've never heard of bonk before.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah.
And then he gets the piss taken out of him by Lucy for not killing him first time, and like the werewolf's really kind of hurt and embarrassed that he didn't kill him first time.
Oh,
really trying.
3 times.
It's like,
call yourself a werewolf.
3 times. Oh, shut up.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that normal life and taking the piss out of it is just hilarious. I don't know. Okay, finally, question 10. If you could adapt it visually, what would it look like? Animated, stop motion, live action with practical effects. What's the dream format if the podcast ever escaped audio? I only added that because I don't really know. People have asked about doing what's grown-up comics called. I can't remember what grown-up comics are called. Graphic novels?
Graphic novels.
Yeah, someone's asked about doing graphic novels, and people have sent me pictures of graphic novels. Never really took it up on it. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I don't know, to be honest, if it could be, because it's like a radio drama, could it actually be made into like a live action thing or an animated thing or a stop motion thing? Because to me, in my head, it's kind of, you're doing it out of a character's head. It's not something that's viewed by a camera on the people or the animals or whatever. It's actually, what we do is we write from the character's point of view. So everything's from their point of view. So I wouldn't know how you would do that unless you did a film from the werewolf's point of view or the professor's point of view, or interchangeable. I really don't know how you do that.
Do you know that there are scenes in Police Squad and Naked Gun where Frank Drebin speaks like a narrator occasionally.
Yeah.
Sometimes he looks straight down the camera lens, or he speaks as a narrator, and then he'll say something out loud, and then another voice of him will comment on what he's just said. And I mean, there might be a way to make it still sort of feel like the way we do it today, but with actors, on the screen. Otherwise, just to take the narration style away and just script it like a drama, like an action movie, perhaps. I think you lose something.
Yeah,
I think you lose something, but you might gain something else. Yeah. I don't know.
No, I really like the format that we have, because to me, it's like Jim said from the Old Man's Podcast. It's just classic radio drama, isn't it?
Yeah.
Also, the way that we've written it it's always from somebody or something's point of view. We're hearing their thoughts in their head and their description of what they're seeing, and there is no director directing that from outside. There's no, it's no character format. It's just based on how something or someone is perceiving that moment. So I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I think if we were to escape audio, it'd be quite interesting for someone to come along and suggest. Because we'd like money. Yes, please. If anyone from Netflix or anything is listening, come and offer us lots of money and we might consider it. I don't know. Right, well...
Yeah, actually, now we're talking about it, though, one way it could potentially work might be, I can imagine an animation where you've got the voice of the narrator talking over the top of it and then pausing whilst the characters on the screen interact with each other and say something, and then they sort of stop and the voice carries on again. Maybe the characters on the screen continue moving but not saying anything. There could be ways to sort of keep the way we do it and add a little bit of visual drama to it as well.
Yeah. I don't know. It sounds like it would be an interesting thing to do. But it's not really been a thought of mine. But yeah, if anyone is interested in doing anything with us, we're always interested in people and what they're thinking, as you probably know. So thank you for your questions. I'm sorry I didn't call your names out, but apparently I'm not allowed to do that. And that's us. We've finished. Thank you very much to Greg for his 3 years of hard work, which it has been 3 years now. And Dee, who is the wonderful Lucifer, and Yvonne, and Chris, and Jim Merck, and all the other characters that we've had in here who've been actors and actresses. And thank you to those people who've supported us. And thank you to the lunatics who've listened and asked us these questions. And buy Greg's book. And my books are getting done as well at some point. And have you got anything else to add?
I'm going to do a shameless self-promo plug here. So the third book in the Lupe series, which
is bloody great, by the way. I've read it. It's brilliant. Sorry.
He's one of only 2 human beings other than myself that have read it at this point in time. It will be published by Grendel Press. It will be book 3 in the Lupe series. And I will announce that Simon de Montfort plays a significant part in that book. The Simon de Montfort is in that book.
Cool.
And how much fun did I have writing him into that? I can't tell you.
Well, he's your character at the end of the day, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? Like when I write him, I know exactly you and your character. It's kind of brilliant. It's the same for Dee with Lucifer and Trudeau and stuff. And Yvonne with Sally and things. Although Jim seems to have a massive crush on Sally, so I'll have to use that in the future at this point. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening. And I don't know how many more episodes we're going to do in this crazy world, but we really enjoy it. So as long as we're having fun, I think we'll keep it up. And as long as we have time and health, we will go for it. Cool.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Bye from Werewolf the Podcast. And we'll speak to you.
Bye-bye. Cheers, everyone.
Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.